Hello and welcome back to Deck Doctor. This week we are taking a look at a Free Wishes deck, and I did listen to all your comments and it was between Green Yellow Sack and Free Wishes are the most comments. I decided to go with Free Wishes since I've been playing this deck myself recently, and it was the deck I used to finish off my run to God rank, so I felt like I had a bit of an experience and knowledge of this deck beforehand and felt like I could share it with you. So this is Lou's Event Wishes deck. Uses a lot of event cards to play cheap Wave Crash Colossus. You can also use those Aurora's Creation to copy Colossus as well to apply more pressure. This deck is a lot of fun. It's alright, it's not bad. I wouldn't say it's tier 1. I would probably say it's bottom of tier 2. So don't expect to be winning against, say, Blue Jump consistently. But if you do enjoy the Free Wishes concept, this is probably the best list that's available right now. Of course, be sure to check out Lou over on his Twitch channel and his YouTube channel. I'll be leaving the links to them in the comments below. So let's get into the deck, guys, and see what these cards do to make this deck work. Darkstalker is a fantastic harvester because you have a lot of cheap events in this deck, and you'll be able to pay one Faeria for a free 2 that can challenge a lot of the competitive early game creatures like Axe Grinder and Triton Trainer. Battletoads is a great opener as well. You can build 2 lakes at the side of your orb, and then you have two 2/2 jumpers that can start collecting Faeria for you in the early game. It's also an event, so it has other synergies. And those synergies are with Windstorm Colossus. Now this is your win condition and the biggest creature in your deck. You're going to be playing a lot of cheap events, so it's going to get very cheap very quickly. And you're going to be able to dash this behind enemy lines, or maybe just play it as a defensive creature. But this is going to be one of the main ways for you to apply pressure to your opponent and deal some damage. Earthcraft is pretty much mandatory in Free Wish decks. You need to accelerate your land as quickly as possible. But this also allows you to play a land of any colour. So it gives you a lot of flexibility with your land development, but you draw a card as well, so you thin that deck, find those answers you need, and yeah, develop lands very quickly. And this is exactly what Wood Elemental is designed for. You get a cheap harvester, great with Explore, so you can explore into Wood Elemental, and the same goes for Water Elemental as well. You're going to be able to develop that extra special land to help you get to those Free Wishes even faster. Frogify is your answer to big threats, but there is only one of them, so be very careful when using this. It does require you to have 3 lakes as well, so keep that in mind in your land development, but you'll want to build 3 lakes eventually because you're going to be wanting to use those Aurora's Creation. Speaking of Aurora the Mythmaker is an amazing card. You have a lot of small creatures, be it the Elementals, the Battletoads, or the Darkstalkers. Bumping them up to a 6/6 will allow you to fight on board and maintain board control. Mirror Phantasm is another transform effect that can go along with Frogify, but it does turn them into 5/5s. Another way this card can be used is by turning your own creatures into 5/5s to get some more board presence and be able to control those wells. Falcon Dive is a 1-cost deal 1 damage event. It's neutral as well, so you don't need any lands to play, which really helps this deck because sometimes you have to spread your lands out depending on what you draw. But the one reason Falcon Dive is in this deck is to accelerate your Windstorm Colossus as fast as possible. So combining Falcon Dives with creatures and other pieces of removal will allow you to apply enormous pressure with those Colossus very early. Speaking of other removal, you do have Soul Drain in this deck. This will allow you to combo it with Falcon Dive to deal with threats of 3 life. But also, it gives you some heal as well. So it'll give you a bit of sustain, be able to stick in the game more. And you also have the Free Wishes as well to combine additional healing to be able to tank some damage. And then Garadan, of course, the big daddy of damage. He's going to allow you to do board clears, especially against blue jumps and yellow events. You can also copy him with Aurora's Creation to get additional area of effect damage and additional 6/6 flying charges. So very cool combos in this deck are based around that Aurora's Creation. Time of Legends is again a 1-cost event, very cheap, going to reduce those Colossus down, but also allows you to get Aurora or Garadan and that will allow you to swing on the board based on certain situations. Maybe you need a 6/6 to fight a big creature, maybe you need the board clear to deal with a lot of frogs, so a very versatile card. And if you don't have any legends left in your deck, you can just create one from any colour really, since you're going to have all the lands for your free wishes. Aurora's Creation I've talked about a lot already. This is a great card in this deck because it allows you to use your utility cards more. You can copy Aurora, you can copy Mirror Phantasm, you can copy Garadan. But one of the cards you will copy a lot, I find, with this deck is the Windstorm Colossus. It just gives you another 7/7 that you can apply pressure with. But the one thing about this card is it's going to be good in certain situations. You're going to have to identify what you need to copy in specific matchups in order to give you that swing you need to get into the game. Last but not least, we have Free Wishes, which is what brings this deck together. You gain 3 points of healing when you play this card, and you get to copy the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Now, you can get some amazing stuff from your opponent. Flame Burst, extra creatures, hard removal like Last Nightmare. But you can also get some pretty bad stuff as well. And the one thing this deck is really good at is playing against other Free Wish decks, because most of the time they're going to steal Earthcrafts, Darkstalkers, Battletoads, nothing of high value. So in a Free Wishes mirror, I feel this deck is really good because the quality of the steals from Free Wishes are much lower. But on the other hand, you do need to steal good stuff especially if you're behind, if you're going to want to respond to your opponent. So timing these cards can be quite crucial, but sometimes you'll just need to play them to gain some answers or some cards to your hand to be able to stick to the board. For your mulligan, especially on turn 1, you're going to want to find that Darkstalker and that Earthcraft. This gives you an amazing turn 1 play in playing a forest, Earthcrafting into a lake, playing a 1-cost 3/2, and you get the card draw from the Earthcraft. Battletoads is also a good keep, gives you 2 collectors which have jump, so a lot of mobility, and it'll allow you to start harvesting Faeria early. 2 other good keeps in your mulligan are Water Elemental and Wood Elemental. This allows you again to accelerate your land really quickly, but if you are playing second and have to explore, these become viable turn 1 plays. So I definitely recommend keeping one of these guys if you do play second. However, you may not want to keep it on first because you might want to find out Darkstalker into Earthcraft combo, but definitely consider keeping these cards when playing second. Like many control decks, this deck is quite expensive with a lot of epic cards and a few legendaries as well. Unfortunately, there's not very many ways you can make control decks budget. Just because of the nature of the deck, you need those high powered cards to keep you in the match. If you are using some of the new cards, here are some changes I would recommend. You could drop the Falcon Dives and try Emperor's Command. Now, Emperor's Command is a fantastic card, probably the most powerful of the 6 new that have been released. I rate this card very highly because not only does it do what Falcon Dive does, it does it better because it allows you to trade on board easier with that -2 power. It gets around protection, especially those 1 health protection creatures like King's Faithful and Shaitan Assassin. You have structure removal as well, which is very important when trying to take care of those Altar of Souls and Forbidden Libraries. And not to mention, you get even more healing, so even more sustain. If you were trying to stick in the game and you're getting rushed down, that extra healing is going to be really important. The one drawback is it is a little bit more expensive, so getting those Colossus out quicker is not going to be as easy because 1-cost events, of course, are cheaper and it's going to allow Colossus to come down much faster. But ultimately, I don't think it makes much of a difference, to be honest. I feel that the command is that powerful that it probably is just a little better than Falcon Dive, but I didn't want to bump up the price of this deck too much. So if you do have access to Emperor's Command, by all means, I definitely recommend trying it out because I feel it's just an amazing card. Once again, I'm going to talk about matchups and strengths and weaknesses together. I feel it's very hard to determine how your matchups are going to go just because Free Wishes has a tremendous influence in what you steal and what you can use in response to your opponent playing. However, I will talk about the strengths and weaknesses. Now, the primary strength for this deck is you copy cards from your opponent with Free Wishes, and they are reduced in cost, so you can play them a lot cheaper. In certain matchups, you're going to love stealing your opponent's cards. You're going to be able to steal stuff like Flame Burst, Last Nightmare, cheap creatures. However, in some matchups, you'll just steal stuff that you can't really use. Maybe like Feed the Forest. I had a game where I stole 2 Feed the Forest, which were completely useless until the late game, but I was still able to win that match somehow, so in the end they did sort of work out. So yeah, the variants of Free Wishes can be pretty bad, but also can be very good. So that's kind of the nature of the card, unfortunately. Variance plays a big role in how Free Wishes plays out. Fast Windstorm Colossus are always great. With the Falcon Dives especially, or the Emperor's Command, if you do make that change, you're going to be able to pump out these Colossus very quickly and apply a lot of pressure. This also allows you to build into the wells based on your hand, so you're going to have to adjust your game plan based on your opening hand and see if you can get those Colossus out quick and apply a lot of pressure. This deck also packs a lot of utility. You have transform effects, you have damage, you have area of effect damage, you have copying cards, your opponent's cards, and your own Leora's creations. So you have a lot of ways to adapt to specific situations and be able to make it into your benefit. You know, creation on the correct creatures could definitely win you matches. Event hands can be quite clunky. You could just draw a hand of events. You could Falcon Dives and say a couple of soul drains. You're not really doing much of them, just removing stuff off board, but you're not developing any board presence of your own. And that's kind of a problem with event themed decks in themselves. You do get these clunky event hands that stop you from playing the board game. Requires a lot of lands to get going. You need 8 special lands just to play Free Wishes, and then you need an additional lake on top of that to play Frogify and Aurora's Creation. So overall you're going to need 9 special lands to get those wishes going. However, you don't need them all the time. Sometimes your Colossus can carry the game for you, or if your Battletoads stick to the board and you're getting a good Aurora off, they'll give you enough time to develop those special lands. And I've already touched how some wish cards can be absolutely useless in specific situations. Most of the time I find if you free wish in desperation and don't draw what you need, you usually lose the game. And that's where those cards become the most useless. But overall, I feel like the strengths outweigh the cons. The matchups can be very difficult, especially since we're in a tempo metagame right now. But as we have new cards being introduced, I assume that over the next coming weeks we're going to see a meta shift anyway, so perhaps event wishes will do a lot better. We'll have to see. Land placement is going to be one of the most important things you learn when playing Free Wishes. Now, your primary lands are lakes because we have a lot of blue creatures in this deck, but also you're going to need to adapt your land placement based on what your opponent's playing. So if your opponent is playing mountains, you can play mountains closer to you because you're going to steal red creatures and you're going to be able to play them in defense or offense. So you're going to have to adjust your lands based on what your opponent plays, and identifying that can be pretty hard sometimes because you might not know where to play them. So keep in mind, if your opponent is playing a specific color, you can use those lands as defensive and offensive lands because you're going to be able to steal cards from your opponent. Another thing to note as well is your opener. I've talked about this in the Mulligan. If you do have the Darkstalker Earthcraft opener, you can go forest from the left of your well into lake, and this will allow you to play a 1-cost Darkstalker as a turn 1 harvester. If you have Battletoads as an opener, you can go lake on either side of your orb, develop 2 frogs, and then they can start collecting from your own wells on the following turns. If you are playing against yellow players, you want to set up your deserts next to your wells because that will allow your wind soldiers that you steal from the Free Wishes to collect Faeria as they travel up the board. Another thing to consider as well is developing a mountain on a well so you can play Garadan and then he can double collect after he's played. So a lot of little things you can do with Free Wishes that allow you to gain advantage based on what you're stealing from your opponent. Just a quick note as well, developing deserts on your wells allows a clean path for your Wave Crash Colossus to dash up towards your opponent and be aggressive. That's another thing those deserts do that's very good. But of course, you're going to have to kind of get a feel for the deck yourself. Be sure to react to your opponent's lands by placing your own special lands that are not blue or yellow based on what they're playing. Like I said, mountains, for example, you can play aggressively and defensively because you will steal cards from them and be able to play them in aggressive or defensive positions. That wraps up this episode of Deck Doctor. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this deck. I haven't done a Free Wishes deck in a while, and I've played this deck quite a lot and I've enjoyed it very much, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. Be sure to check out Lou's channels as well. He streams on Twitch and he makes YouTube content. I've left links to his channels in the description below. Show him your support as he created this deck and it's absolutely fantastic. If you do like this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up, and of course drop a subscribe if you want to watch Deck Doctor and Deck Pilot every week. And of course check out Faeria.com/the-hub for articles, guides and decks. Until next time guys, take care, have a great day.